Many dog owners are well aware of their pet's sociable nature, as their furry companions are often eager to make friends with just about anyone or anything. Whether it's a fellow dog passing by or a stranger knocking on the front door, dogs like Old Blue tend to greet them with a friendly sniff and a wagging tail. However, sometimes a dog's friendliness can still manage to surprise even the most dedicated dog lovers. Consider the story from the northern tip of Maine, where a dog owner and her family had witnessed their canine friend eagerly greeting numerous guests staying at their family-owned campground. But what happened when an unexpected visitor arrived at the campground left an indelible mark on her entire family? As the owner and operator of Lugden Lodge, a family-owned camp nestled in rural Wallagrass, Maine, Shannon Lugden was no stranger to encounters with animals from the surrounding wilderness. However, in June 2018, she encountered an animal that truly stood out from the rest. The encounter began at 5 a.m. on a tranquil Saturday morning. Amidst the early morning serenity of the campground, while young campers were still asleep from the previous day's adventures, Shannon was startled by an unusual sound. The cries that pierced the campground were coming from a baby moose. Shannon surmised that the young moose was calling out for her mother. Deciding to name her Miss Maggie, Shannon resolved to offer her assistance. However, as much as Shannon wished she could immediately reunite the young moose with her mother, she recognized that some situations required nature to take its course. This was one such moment, and they would have to wait until nature allowed them to intervene, which turned out to be about 8 hours later. Around 1 p.m., Miss Maggie wandered perilously close to Route 11, a 402-mile highway traversing the center of Maine. A moose on the road, regardless of its age, posed a risk to drivers, and Shannon knew she needed to step in. Shannon promptly contacted the local game wardens, and two exceptional wardens named Adrian and Nick arrived to assist. Together, they guided Miss Maggie back to the brook, where she could find shelter in the shade. However, the challenge was far from over. Miss Maggie returned to the spot where she had been crying loudly at 5 a.m., the same place they believed her mother had left her. Just moments before, Shannon had hoped that the young moose would pick up her mother's scent and resolve the situation herself, but it seemed they were back to square one. To complicate matters further, the wardens advised Shannon and her family not to approach Miss Maggie. They explained that wild animals often leave their young to forage for food, drink, and rest, emphasizing that what appeared to be abandonment might be a natural part of the animal's life. Reluctantly, Shannon followed their advice and left Miss Maggie alone. The 24-hour period passed, and by Sunday morning, there was no sign of the young moose. Shannon decided to let her German Shepherd Leo out onto the grounds, and that's when the remarkable moose encounter took a truly exceptional turn. Leo stumbled upon Miss Maggie by chance as he strutted around the campgrounds. It turned out that the little moose had not been reunited with her mother during those passing hours. Being the curious dog that he was, Leo wasted no time investigating the situation. Their interaction didn't end with a brief encounter. Leo and Miss Maggie came face to face and nose to nose. Shannon noted that Leo walked right over, and in no time, Miss Maggie and Leo became fast friends. The friendships of the day were only just beginning to bloom. Throughout that Sunday morning, Miss Maggie followed them around, seeking attention from Shannon and her family. After leaving her be for 24 hours, the Lugden family was more than happy to oblige her. Each family member took a photo with the 6-day-old 27-pound moose that had found her way helplessly to the campground. Miss Maggie reveled in the motherly love she had been missing out on. With the invisible barrier between human and moose broken thanks to a curious dog, Shannon assumed the role of a mother. She wrote that she fed Miss Maggie a mixture of grass, clover, and water, resembling a milkshake. She also consulted a veterinarian who recommended feeding her Lactaid. Throughout it all, Miss Maggie displayed unwavering affection towards Shannon, her family, and Leo the dog. Later in the afternoon, wardens Adrian and Nick returned. With no sign of the mother's return, they sadly concluded that Miss Maggie had been abandoned. It was a somber moment, but it presented a significant opportunity. The wardens arranged for Amanda Demas, a biologist with the Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife who had experience with abandoned animals, to collect Miss Maggie and transport her to the Maine Wildlife Park. There, caretakers could provide her with everything she needed to grow up strong and healthy. It was a promising fate for an abandoned baby moose who would always remember the dog that offered her friendship and the compassionate rescue organizations that gave her a chance at a better life. Pitty had been nursing the kitten, providing her with the vital milk she needed to survive in the challenging environment of a junkyard. Pitty and Kitty had come together during their darkest moments, and the rescuers were understandably astounded by their unlikely bond. The rescuers who discovered Pitty and Kitty brought the pair back to the Dallas Mercy Animal Clinic for a thorough examination. Even veterinarian Dr. Rick Hamlin was taken aback by the remarkable pairing, stating, "Over my 28-year career, I've never seen anything quite like this." Dr. Hamlin offered a theory about how the two unlikely companions came together, suggesting, "My best guess is that the mother pit bull had a litter of puppies, and they either passed away or were weaned, leaving her with extra milk. She likely found the abandoned kitten and took it in as her own." As fortunate as this chance encounter was, the timing of the rescue proved even luckier. Pitty's milk had run out, and she wouldn't have been able to care for Kitty much longer. If the rescuers hadn't found them when they did, the kitten might not have survived. Pitty and Kitty had captured the hearts of everyone at the clinic, but Kitty required extensive attention and care. Due to time constraints, the clinic found a home that could provide the extra care the kitten needed, although it meant separating her from her adoptive mother. Pitty immediately showed her distress at being without her baby. Dr. Hamlin noted, "When I took Kitty out of the cage, Pitty started howling. It was the first time she had made any vocalization since her arrival. Fortunately, they weren't apart for long. Caretakers returned Kitty to the clinic the following morning, and Pitty, overflowing with joy, cleaned and cleaned and cleaned her. At that point, rescuers devised a plan to have Pitty and Kitty adopted as a bonded pair. However, an unforeseen tragedy struck. Initially unnoticed by Dr. Hamlin, Kitty had a kidney and bladder malformation, likely the reason her mother had abandoned her in the first place. Despite Dr. Hamlin's best efforts, Kitty couldn't be saved. Kitty passed away before the clinic could find a home for her and Pitty. The impact of this loss on Pitty was unknown, but it was safe to assume that the mother pit bull likely noticed the absence of her adopted kitten. The question remained, could she ever find happiness again after such a heartbreaking experience? Although Pitty had to face life without Kitty by her side, she eventually found a forever home where she received ample food and love. Her new family already had several dogs, and Pitty seamlessly integrated into her new home.